Good morning, everybody. And this is a very topical theme which we have got today and will be very interesting, I believe. Um, for last 5, 6 days, we are only hearing about foreign law firms knocking at the doors of India, and Bar Council has finally agreed to start some kind of entry for them. This is a very interesting topic, and there was a buzz for almost 7, 8 years. It is being talked about. There were a lot of issues with regard to reciprocity and whether we will get the same rights in their jurisdictions. What will India do? Will Indian lawyers get some kind of parity if we go to United Kingdom and other jurisdictions? So we have a panel where we have one of the most eminent infrastructure lawyer, Amit Kapurji, in this panel, who represents a large law firm, but we all respect him as a huge infrastructure lawyer. We have Sridhar Potaraju, arguing counsel in the Supreme Court of India. We have seen him arguing all the critical matters, and he knows the position of the government as well as a lot of other interesting corporations which he represents. And we have a galaxy of high-profile general counsels today who will consume the services of these foreign law firms, if at all they all will start coming here. So I will just give 2, 3 data. 75,000 lawyers register in the bar councils across the country every year. You have to give them jobs. That was the prime reason I think government was all the time pushing the regulator that you go and start this process as soon as possible. The second data is that audit companies and consulting companies have multiplied in last 10 years, their revenues have gone by 780%. That's the assessment which the Commerce Ministry has, that 780% in 10 years. So legal sector, still they believe in the Doordarshan stage, where we only see Chitrahar on Wednesday and one movie on Gulshan Kumarji's Kripa on Friday. So that is the kind of buzz which is there for opening of the legal sector. Amit bhai, I will ask you first to say what are your initial take about this entire issue.
Thank you, Sudhir, for your kind words. Pleasure being here today. I think it's a change that has been 61 years in the making. The Advocates Act 1961, at the beginning, envisaged reciprocity. The matter has been pending in terms of implementation with the government for 29 years. So it's good news. It's good that we are opening up. We are accepting the fact that as we come to the high table in the global world as a leading economy, as a growth engine for the world, inviting investments, investing with them, going into joint ventures, we need to accept the fact that when people come from outside, they will need advice which they find suitable. There are protections that are required. And while at the first principle, very important, very positive mood for the profession, surprisingly, the rules are still bereft of much detail, and the devil lies in the detail. So that is what I would say at the beginning, and of course we can get into in greater detail. Only one correction. Unlike Doordarshan, our Chitrahar is on Mondays and Fridays.
Yes, totally agree with you. Stand corrected here. Sameet sir, I will give you the mic because you represent the private sector. You are a general counsel who sees all kind of legal services being consumed by the corporations. What do you think this development will lead to?
I think it's very, very welcome development because we have been looking for this always, and there's always a need for private sector to hire foreign lawyers and foreign. Whenever, particularly when we have met in other jurisdiction and all. So I think it's, as he rightly said, it's actually delayed, but we really have to embrace it, I think, and our system, I think, as of now, and our council and our legal system is much more mature today that we are actually able to handle this and we are actually able to embrace it. There was some initial days were there when people were actually resisting that, but I think this change has to be accepted now, and everyone is welcome that. And so far as a little bit certainty, whenever there is a uncertainty, I would say that so far as there is uncertainty, something, you always get a chance to explore more things. You always get motivated by uncertainty, when you have to break it down into the explored areas. So I think it will give a good, good exposure to our lawyers, particularly I would say, I think the foreign law firm should be allowed to give internship also to the students and all, and that will be a great opportunity for students to learn. So I think we
Yes,
should
very
embrace
good
it.
suggestion. Monica, I'll come to you, and I will first ask you to say what kind of company you are leading their legal role, just to understand, and how much you think will impact companies and corporations' uh, budget for legal services. Because lot many law firms in India are already dancing, and they are issuing a statement कि फीस तो 3 गुना बढ़ गई हमारी.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's working.
Okay, cool.
Just come close. Okay.
Yeah, I'm delighted to be here. First thing, I'm working with Skuad. Skuad is a HR tech company, and we have presence in almost 60 odd countries all over the globe. And the company like us need these kind of services. We were waiting for this change, and I'm welcoming this change with open arm. Right now, when we started, we wanted somebody, some foreign shop should be here who can guide us. Otherwise, we were just roaming around finding the firms. When I joined the company, I was just setting up US and Canada and trying to Googling and figuring out the firms there who can help me to setting up my firm, having everything, partnership, infrastructure. So this will definitely help us, a company like us, to work more effectively. And sir has rightly said, there is devil is always in the detail. Yes, it will be. We have to see how the regulation will turn out to be. Right. The other thing which I would like to mention, when you will throw a stone in the pond, there will be ripple. We
Very
have to
well.
wait till it calms down, and we have to see how this thing will turn out. Right. So yeah, that's my take on this.
Wonderful. Well said. Sridhar, with your hawkish eye, what all litigation scenarios you are looking at now? Because the regulations are not very clear as of now. And these will be interpretation area, what one can do, what one can't do. और आसमान में कितने तारे हैं जितने कि आपके सर पे बाल हैं वाले kind of situation we are staring at. And once you set up the shop, it becomes like the same thing. Once you have a chamber or a property position, that kind of situation. So if the firms are here, what do you think? What kind of litigation scenario you are seeing? Will it be again stopped because previously some litigations happened? You are aware about it.
Thanks to Business World and for giving me this opportunity. My take is it's, I think, a welcome step, and I'm very happy and heartened to see the change happen, because this is the second major change as I see in my career. I mean, 96, the Arbitration Conciliation Act came. We all graduated in 97. So we've seen that law evolve, and then now we've seen it grow with us probably, and how it is settled, and then there are experts who are practicing exclusively in the field of arbitration law. So now coming to the topic of the day, the entry of foreign lawyers who are licensed to practice in their respective home jurisdictions or law firms is a welcome change that has happened. I mean, I look at it from a very Indian perspective, with unicorns growing by the dozens in every city of the country. They are opening up across the globe. So they would need legal advice as much in those jurisdictions sitting in Bangalore or Hyderabad or in Gurgaon. So therefore, I think it's a very welcome step, because I have a lot of friends who are into startup businesses, and they keep struggling to get proper legal advice, and you eventually fall back on your alumni networks of people who would have migrated and practiced in different jurisdictions. Now you could directly get someone probably here and then have the comfort of actually deliberating and discussing your business options even before you open it. Now the second part of it, the litigation. I mean, Indian litigators are actually out of the box thinkers. So we can actually keep the law firms engaged in litigation and keep ourselves busy on all the loopholes in the regulations, or probably the regulation is probably, as I see, a broad statement of purpose. The details probably need to be spelt out, because having an address outside India is one criterion to actually validate their presence. I mean, so address outside India is quite simple for me. I mean, you actually take a postbox number in Singapore or somewhere and you have an address outside India. So it's quite open-ended as I see. And then For litigation, see these law firms, when they come for commercial arbitrations in India, they would definitely need a lot of support here. The council could probably fly in from wherever, but they would need the infrastructure and the support system here on ground to actually enable that performance, which is the arguments in the final stage or to do the cross-examinations when India is looking to become a hub for global commercial arbitration. And I think there's a lot of role. So all the parties may not necessarily fly in their counsels from abroad. So Indian counsels who are adept and who are competent to deal with complex issues would definitely be relevant. And then probably this is a new legal realm for a IPL kind of a scenario where you'll have foreign players and Indian players playing together.
Very well. Good IPL now. Doordarshan IPL, we're getting good ones. Brij, I'll come to you. And also tell us about your business and how much international exposure, as our previous speakers have talked about, your company also gets, so that you engage with the global law firms. And in today's scenario, it is true that most of the startups and the large startups which have started now going across the world suddenly also needed these law firm advisory from smaller cities, not only Delhi, Bombay, all the law firms, all of us know that, and we are exposed to this reality. So how do you see this entire thing unfolding?
Yeah. Thank you, Sudhir. Thank you, BW World, for giving the opportunity to speak on the very hot topic for nowadays for the legal fraternity. Good morning to everyone. So now coming on the topic, I'll start with the Ofbusiness where I'm working. So Ofbusiness is a group of companies wherein it is engaged into the trading and manufacturing of some of the commodities like infrastructure, raw material, chemicals, and etc. etc. So now Ofbusiness, organic business is aggregation only. Now we have entered into doing some M&As, acquisitions through purchase of shares out of court. So wherein doing those transactions, in each of the transactions we have seen, Sudhir, that there are multiple aspects to be taken care by the law firms, advisory needed on those aspects, specifically from the structuring point of view. Means how do we structure from to make it tax neutral, make it financially favorable to both the parties. A win-win sort of a situation needs the advice and everything that is legally needed to be executed from these law firms. And I have seen, again, to coming to your question, that means what sort of help that I have got from all the foreign law firms. Yes, whenever we are getting some investments, because we have recently closed our round for the 5 billion, wherein all the top global investors has invested. So they always try to get these, international law firms to engage and advise. So in our going on transactions also, these international law firms are getting help from the Indian law firms in every aspect, because they are not so hands-on on the tax, finance, because being a lawyer from the corporate side it is not necessarily limited to advising on the legal aspect, because you have to be very clear on the tax and to make the deal or make the transaction more effective from all perspective.
Yes.
So where there is a point where the Indian lawyers, means I'm also on and about 30 plus. So so I need help from foreign investors as well. It is twofolded. I take this move as very positive, because I also want to understand, because there are, when you are negotiating documents with the foreign investors and all, so they always say this law is applicable there, then we have to this clause to be captured in the agreement. So that's how it will also make us negotiate better in terms of knowing the laws of the foreign countries whenever the foreign lawyers are coming into India for these advisory and the other services to be given to Indian investors.
Wow, very good. Thank you. Pranav, what are your thoughts? You can, same mic. What are your thoughts about your company and how much it will change the way you work?
First of all, let me congratulate brilliant panel, and of course, we couldn't have a better moderator for this panel for the topic that we have. Uh, I I work for a company called Freshworks. Freshworks is we're Nasdaq listed now, but I've seen the evolution from the time I came in. We were a unicorn, and from unicorn to getting listed Nasdaq, all during the time of COVID, working from home, and we had to at least utilize services from across the globe while making that prospectus available for the SEC, right? And most of the times you probably think towards, okay, I know this, and maybe this is the way that everyone does, but jurisdictions and their laws differ from just not from the angle that you think, but could be very, very different. Some of them are very common in respect of how things are common in terms of transaction, but enforcement could be different, taxation could be different, M&A checklist could be a little varied from however you are supposed to do. In spite of that, I think the three common advantages that we believe of this change that's welcomed is time advantage. I sit in Indian time zone, but I also look at Asia Pacific, so Singapore and Australia are much ahead. If the council is sitting in India and advising on all the three, because sometimes you're looking at everything at one roof and then trying to see what changes are there specifically for that location. And if we want to roll out in parallel or in sequence, that's one. Our local lawyers, or maybe the lawyers, Indian lawyers for that matter, are brilliant. They not only understand the law, but they also understand the business. They are well aware of what things are going on ground. Whereas when you have lawyers present in developed nations, they take some time to really understand what could be the ground realities of enforcement, and things are not always hunky-dory. So even if whenever we're taking that advice, we still want to go back again and understand if enforcement will be very similar to what we believe in India, because our style of enforcement is ingrained into us.
Yeah.
And I think the third one is as much from an in-house perspective, I believe it's a good competition, but apart from the governing law, everything is so standardized in the SaaS business model that I belong to. There is really nothing that you could differentiate between an Indian lawyer negotiating on a foreign lawyer. Playbooks are standard, so even if the lawyers is here with a different jurisdiction and different governing law being there, the other aspects of the transactions are very similar in the same industry. So I think the change is welcome. I don't think there is anything to be worried about. But yes, like everyone says, devil lies in the detail, and only time will tell whether this has been the greatest opportunity for lawyers or law firms abroad.
Wonderful. Amit sir, we'll come to you, but before that, I'll just share some more data. Many of our conversations where Indian companies have been doing a joint venture with a UK or a European company, and you are working with them from very close angle, and suddenly you realize that the UK company has got their lawyers here, and you are telling them you can't do this kind of advice, you have to take us on board. Then they ask them to become their in-house actually. And these are large operations. And during pandemic also, people in fact flew down and they stayed in hotels and did the advice. And that's going on for almost 2 decades or more. Few of the direct questions I'll ask you because we will take advantage. I hope all my panelists agree that we have him here, he will answer. What actually is the difference in fee today for a top Indian law firm and a top London law firm? What actually is the difference?
I think fee will be quite dependent on relationship, the nature of transaction, and the engagement. So you may have a situation, for example, India's council, which are not in the realm of this opening up, would perhaps charge the highest fee anywhere in the world.
Yes.
Our top 10 council would be charging much more for an appearance than anybody else does anywhere in the world. Indian law firms, you would find that at the top level would work at around perhaps 50 to 70% of the fee that the top American and UK firms will charge. But then given a specific transaction, specialization, things could change. So you can't have a cookie cutter approach to it. However, what is obvious is that Indian lawyers across the board, rather than worry about people at the top of the food chain, would be far more efficient in terms of time and cost for firms other than exposure and learning. So it's a great opportunity for Indian lawyers to learn with international law firms, acquire better skills, learn about cross-border transactions, get trained in it, to work alongside to develop those ideas and perspectives, which are very vital. These are learned experiences. But the critical issue is that where is the detail of it? Unfortunately, today what we find, if you see the judgment of 2018 Supreme Court, clearly laid out 9 areas where there is a clear lack of a level playing field. Even today, the rules that have come at times are pushing the boundary, but they have not touched any of those 9. Now, unless you address those, I don't know whether this opening up will actually take place and go forward. And the tragedy is, while I appreciate that from a business point of view, this may be a good idea, but from a profession point of view. So I'm now differentiating between the GCs on the table, who are consumers of that service, versus the profession, where young lawyers are coming up, 30 under 30 as that category, and they're growing into a role. What you're doing here is that though we have been in consultation and discussion of opening up of this market with the government for 29 years, and that's so stated in the judgment itself. It was recognized by Bombay High Court as well. We have not got the granular detail at all. So Bar Council needs to now engage actively and lay out a roadmap. You remember the last time it was being discussed 8 to 9 years ago. There was a clear discussion and agreement that there will be a roadmap with a phased opening up. That roadmap has not come. Even today, an international law firm will come in, it could be a company, or it could be a corporation. Does an Indian lawyer or Indian law firm have the ability? No. The ability to market, advertise, the kind of fees you would charge, contingency fees, dependent on purchasing rights in choices of action. All of that is barred. Senior counsel can't be partners in law firms. QCs are partners in law firms in UK. In US, lead counsel are there. So unless you are able to create a framework in which Indian lawyers will be placed in a manner where they at least are not disadvantaged in their own country, there is a problem here. And I think that problem needs to be addressed very actively by the government.
Yeah. The second question would be, one, is this a response to the election year next year? That there is a sapna that thousands of jobs are going to be created, like we are doing it in the states also, that 2 lakhs jobs in Bihar, 1 lakh job in UP. So is that addressing to that? Because if it goes for judicial scrutiny as per you, in my understanding, and I think she will also dwell upon it, then it's gone for a toss because there is no roadmap. So that is one. The second is, if it is not, and it's a sincere attempt on part of the regulator, also on part of the government which is supporting it, is it a very sincere attempt towards positioning us as an arbitration center?
I think 2 areas which are very critical, and I said that in the opening. The fact that India aspires to be as one of the growth engines for the world, is inviting foreign direct investments, getting joint ventures, technology transfers, is working also going out, unicorns you mentioned. It is necessary that we embrace the reality that each jurisdiction has a different framework. Civil law versus common law is a fundamental difference, or an Islamic law. Moving forward from there, country to country, there are variations. So you need that advice. I mean, anybody who's investing money who's housed in England or in United States or for that matter in Australia or Singapore would like to have advice of their counsel, and they will get it.
Sir, phone pe bahar baat kariye jaakar.
So that is going to be the reality that we will face. Now, whether it is an election year issue, no, I don't think so. I think they were waiting for a long time, and somehow, having not paid enough attention to work the details out, they have made an announcement. And the idea is that once I announce, then things will follow through. Because if you think that Indian lawyers being engaged in-house or becoming a part as an associate or a partner in an international law firm will get an advantage, they won't. As per the rules, they will not be allowed to address Indian courts, appear in tribunals, not do any of the non-litigious work which is prohibited for them. So they'll be at par with a foreign lawyer. Right. Therefore, there is a need to think this through. And waiting in the wings for 8-9 years and then just launching it is what's happened. I hope this will lead to that discussion. Because now that the government has announced that we are opening up, hopefully now everybody will come to the table and resolve.
Sameet sir.
No, it just reminded me, a saying In fact, what happened was when you were talking about whether, the oont kis karvat baithega, we're not still
Correct.
aware of it. What will happen exactly? Who will going to get benefit? The other thing is, we have done a lot with the US lawyers and UK lawyers. What we have seen is that they have, for example, in the in-house as well as law firm. Pranav and you'll agree, the legal counsel, general counsel, that whenever they are coming and advising us, and whenever we are discussing with them, they have 4 lawyers. One is dealing in contract, one is employment, one is insurance, and one is slow in every JV agreement and all. And our side, one GC is handling all and everything, each and everything. Either they'll learn from us, or otherwise we'll have more opportunity for the other lawyers. This is what my view is. The second is in terms of uncertainty, where the oont will take karvat. It reminds me of, Sitaram Kesari, who was the Congress president at one point of time. He once spoken on the China's policy, whether you are leftist or you are rightist. So what he said was that China's policy are like a DTC bus, which will give you the indicator of left and go to the right. So you never know which way you are going to actually. So it's still, something we really have to vouch, what is going to happen. But I think our council and our system is mature enough to handle the things whenever it emerges, frankly. This is what my view is.
Yeah, on that note, when you said about the senior counsel's fee, I remember one large real estate company which was doing an arbitration in New York from India, and they had taken one of the best litigation firm which is only based in Delhi, and the senior counsel who is very, very big, not always here in India. So when they heard his fee, 4 of the partners and senior partner left the arbitration center. That how much he is being paid and why we are not being paid that much. So there are a lot of corrections for them also. It's not Bangladesh that you open a Baker McKenzie office there and say, look, we have opened up in Bangladesh. Your country's economy is entirely different proportionate. What are your thoughts, Monika?
Thank you. I think this will definitely contribute towards the economy and our GDP as well. We should be part of it as legal counsel, a lawyer, right? As a legal system, we have been struggling right till now. He's very rightly mentioned that whenever we are in the calls with foreign companies or countries, they have bunch of lawyers sitting there and we are only one and negotiating our contracts. This will open up a lot of opportunities for us and for the people, young lawyers coming here. We don't have to go outside India. We'll have firms and shops here, and then they will have opportunities, right? We can retain our talents here. And it will be in a very controlled manner. As right now, of course, it has been said like this, it will be in a controlled manner. Hopefully, it will be in a controlled manner only. And this will be on the principle of reciprocity. So if they are allowing us, we'll allow them. It's a barter system. Right, so this is something I would appreciate, and I say that maybe what I have heard till now, Singapore or UK, they all are working in the same fashion. It's more controlled. It's more like a due diligence happening on the firms who has opened up, has their own setup outside India. Similarly, we'll have here as well, right? Yeah, it's my take on this, and I hope it will contribute to our
Very
economy.
good. Shri, before you speak on how do you see this unfolding, the senior counsel's fee. So I'm a door tenant number 5 barrister's chamber in London. So I was talking to one of the KCs there, and I said that this is what one of the senior advocates we both work very closely makes in a year. He said it can't be. It is ridiculous. This kind of amount nobody makes in any legal jurisdiction. I said, no, he actually makes that kind of money. So do you think that a lot of what Monika also said, that they will also learn from us? Sameet sir also said rightly, they will also learn from us and realize कि हम लोग तो 5 लोग का काम एक आदमी करता है. So global integration of a lot of Indian values will also happen?
I am sure that the work ethic that Indian lawyers have with a rigid code of ethics, at least on statute book, is concerned, which majority of the people honestly practice, I think will be a great learning experience for the foreign lawyers and law firms. Because ultimately legal service is actually a service and not a commercial product on sale as far as our ethos are concerned.
Really?
Yeah, I mean access to justice, at least in India, as far as the justice system is concerned, it's premised on that principle of Yatho Dharmas Tato Jaya guiding the Supreme Court. Naman. No, of course, they are not opening up the litigation space. But as far as work ethic is concerned, barring a few, I think broadly, I believe that Indian lawyers practice their law with sincerity towards their ethics and code of conduct, and they actually try to bring value to the table. And that's reflected from the fact that one GC on the Indian side actually is bhari on 4 or 5 experts, because the integration that a GC brings to one document, because they are able to understand the interplay of different segments of the same document, as against an expert who's looking at it like a physiotherapist is not looking at the temperature and the other guy is not looking at the lungs. So it's like multidisciplinary advantage that a general counsel or a practitioner in India has would definitely save a lot of costs straight away for the client or the corporate which is seeking to engage. And this is something which they can also take from us, that law needs to be understood as an integrated course and not a specialization alone when it comes to documentation and other things, because there will be diverse issues which will necessarily have implications beyond their area of expertise.
Yeah. Brij, I want to ask you that all these companies are new age companies, yours and even Pranav's company. A new age company in India which has come in last 10 years, I would say, if that's the time period we are looking at, whether it's insurance, fintech, or all kind of e-commerce and other stuff. How much of their services is non-litigation? How much of their services is non-litigation and how much is of litigation normally? They really go into litigation? I'm not talking about Jilango kind of thing, few others.
So when you talk about the new ages companies, so they were in their time when you don't focus on disputing with any party, you just focus on the growth from the business perspective. So if any disputes comes in, even it doesn't go to the court, they set it amicably with the party. So hence the answer to your question will be more the engaging services that one new age company gets is from the corporate side, not the litigation. But when the company, establishes and at the maturity stage, wherein you are focusing on, making SOPs and making the concrete processes, etc., and controls. So where there you found that there are lacks and gaps, and then you suddenly gets to the dispute with all the parties. So there the time comes when the litigation side plays a vital role. But at the new ages company, till 10 years or maybe 15 years from its inception, it may not attract more litigation in terms of services.
Pranav, almost same question, but you can say whatever you want to say. Yeah.
Thank you. I think I totally agree. Every new age company opened in the last 10, 15 so years is looking towards a proactive method of minimizing litigation, which is why the in-house steps in quite early these days compared to, dekhi jayegi, CA dekh raha hai hamara. And
हाँ, वो बड़ा इंपॉर्टेंट पार्ट है कि सीए जब लीगल एडवाइजर जो इंडिया में करता था, हमसे ज्यादा वो हिट होने वाले हैं शायद, करेक्ट? Because 90% of my client, when we were smaller law firms at that time, CA was only making all their legal documentation. Yeah.
ये गलत टॉपिक उठा लिया हमने इस पैनल के लिए.
बहुत जरूरी उठाया. हमने कभी टर्म शीट नहीं देखी एज लॉयर्स, पर उन्होंने हमेशा ही एग्रीमेंट्स बनाए और उसमें सीट ऑफ आर्बिट्रेशन उन्होंने कई बार दुबई रखा, लेकिन कोर्ट ऑफ दिल्ली जुरिस्डिक्शन रखा.
Right. So in spite of the conflicts that we have from within the community of professions, that we believe that we can also do something. CS believes that they can also.
नाम नहीं लिया,
हमने किसी का नाम भी नहीं लिया, हम किसी का नाम ले भी नहीं रहे हैं. हमें दोबारा आना है यहाँ पे. My view on this is one, there is a proactive approach to minimize litigation, and even if it's going towards litigation, you will then, as he said, will want to arbitrate or mediate so that there is really no going to court. And even if in some circumstances you have to court, that would be the one case in the 5 years of that company's history. I think everybody is very worried and has some kind of bad experiences in going to courts at some level of the founders or whatever. So they're really not really keen towards having active litigations pending in the balance sheets. I think second point here is if I am as a foreign lawyer entering into a jurisdiction as India, and there are other people who are competing because the Bar Council says they can't have concentration of so many lawyers from the same jurisdiction in the country, and it can be totally looked at whether our presence in those countries are also as equal. I think then they will probably make a foreign lawyers bar association to kind of activate their own rights and kind of move forwards to kind of
And there'll be some lawyers from eastern part of the country also in them. Of Indian origin, who will be working in those firms. Yeah.
We don't know that yet. We're not naming anyone.
Pranav, you are giving so many headlines that I'm just helping you make
I
it more
don't even know who
interesting.
Eastern lawyers are, by the way. Who are we referring to? I have no idea. I sit in the north. That's all I need to know.
Our job is to make it interesting.
Correct. So Foreign Lawyers Bar Association is what I think. They will need a space or some kind of, and these associations will ask for
Yeah, I understand.
some kind of detailed rules so as to regulate, and
Okay.
maybe they can again work with us to understand what kind of balance that they need. So maybe our bar association also will probably work towards, like Mr. Kapur said, opening up marketing
Yes.
or opening up, positions for senior counsels to be also partners. But as much as I think in that respect, in-house counsel should also be given the
Yes.
same kind of experience when looking at going to courts, because if I have to suspend my own practice as in-house, I just have no experience when I retire, and I'm like starting from
I
scratch.
agree. Same
That's-
thing.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's another- I have a
sorry.
small. I'm just going to take your role for a second. I'm just going to ask sir. And this is the question which may remind me about there's a category, and maybe for the benefit of everyone, foreign lawyers cannot represent in the court of law, right? But are they allowed to enter the courtroom or not to brief the senior counsel or not? What's your view in that actually?
Good question.
Of course, they can brief senior counsel. That shouldn't be an issue at all. But that's not the problem. The problem is that the principle of reciprocity is based on 4 or 5 things. Number one, you will allow each other to practice commercially. Number two, you will be governed by the same rules in terms of code of conduct and ethics. Right now, the code of conduct and ethics of Indian Bar Council doesn't apply to them. So what happens? Somebody comes here and commits a fraud or is involved in problems. I would not name, but if you were to search, you would know. Some of the top law firms world over, just like consulting firms, have been involved in multi-million-dollar claims for professional negligence. Something like that happens coming in, and they walk out because the only thing you will do, as per your rules, is to suspend the registration. It means nothing. So there is that's why I'm saying that it's unfortunate that in spite of the fact that it's 29 years in the making, since 15 we have discussed multi-times the pathway, but there's nothing there.
Right.
And it gives an out. Now, why would you try and create a situation where you have uncertainty about accountability, because ultimately, just like doctors, lawyers impact people's lives and well-being. You trust somebody, it is a matter of entrustment. Then there has to be certain sanctity around it in terms of confidentiality, in terms of professional ethics, conflict of interest, all of that. As for in-house counsel, I think what's very important is to have porosity in people going in-house and coming to practice. India has not matured to that level, but when you are working in-house as a director in a company, whether you like it or not, you cannot possibly appear and argue for that to justify. There's a conflict of interest inherently. So that is a problem. But what we need to do is to encourage partners going in as in-house, general counsel coming and working in a law firm or practicing for that matter for a few years and going back again. In US and UK, you find much better cross-fertilization. They go into academics, they practice, and that's why it is a richer tradition. I think we should work for that.
Yeah. Sridhar, I give you the last word because we are absolutely out of time. Yeah.
I think as far as the young law students or young lawyers who are looking at this change happening, I think it's a very great opportunity for them. Probably as soon as you graduate, you clear your bar exams and then probably suspend your license and then work with these firms or lawyers who come in, gain experience with them and then come back to practice and revive your license. So I think that cross-fertilization can happen. And then with so much of law students going abroad, picking up experience in law firms, picking up their post-graduation degrees, undergraduation degrees abroad. I think it's a great opportunity for the future to actually become global lawyers in a matter of few years, if not decades.
Yes. Just to say that with all the attempt to make it very interesting, I also want to sincerely say that it's a matter of great hope for everybody, especially for the younger lawyers who are passing out, who have been for years asking for more opportunities, because we never had that many jobs. And after the pandemic, it became even more important for the quality law students which India is producing. They go for internship abroad, they study abroad nowadays. I think this integration was something which was had to happen. So any kind of interpretation will be done, in my understanding, and this will be a reality. And that on this hope, I think Pranav, you want to have the last word. Yes.
I think students need not go anywhere. The foreign universities are now coming to India. You can study law.
नहीं, जो पढ़ चुके उनके लिए.
Correct. And given what we are talking in terms of job creation, I don't think the legal process outsourcing is hit. They have been here and they will only flourish with the foreign lawyers also coming and heading these companies, not in the sphere of practice, but actually sitting here and actually making them understand what is really wanted.
Yeah.
So in that respect, I think outsourcing will be benefited 100 times.
Very good. Thank you. Thanks a lot for this lovely panel. Bye-bye. There's one question from Hemant Kumar, sir. Yes, sir. He will have many answers also, because one of the tallest general counsel.
A very interesting session. What I'm expecting that maybe in 2-3 weeks, 4-5 PIL will be filed, and the whole process may be stayed. That is my apprehension. Second thing is that as a general counsel, because today we are not a general counsel, we are a businessman. I feel that this is a good attempt, because we did not pay now in US dollar, and it's a cost effective. My management will be happy. But one thing I tell you, Sudhir, that we should not be afraid of these foreign lawyers.
Yes.
Because at least I am on a constant basis last 2 decades discussing with these foreign lawyers. Our team or our legal brain are brilliant. And therefore, we should not at all worry. Now, Amit said that a general counsel cannot practice. Let me, Amit, share with you. I have been practicing as a general counsel for the last 20 years. So what you need to do is, you have to just file an application under Section 32 of the Advocate Act, and the arbitrator and courts are allowing. But yeah, you can represent on behalf of your company only, not other counsel. That's all.
Okay, thank you. Thanks a lot for this wonderful opportunity.